The dining room went completely silent. Not the comfortable kind of quiet that falls over a family dinner, the kind that happens when someone drops a glass or says something they can't take back. I was sitting at my daughter Emily's dining table, the one I'd helped her buy 4 years ago, though no one at this table seemed to remember that anymore. My hands weren't shaking. They'd been trembling for weeks, but now, looking at the faces around this table, I felt nothing but a cold, clarifying calm. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Emily's voice had gone up an octave, tight and strained. She was staring at the manila folder I'd just placed on the table between the artisan bread and the organic salad, the salad from the farmer's market that I'd introduced her to years ago. Patricia, my daughter's mother-in-law, had stopped mid-sentence. Her wine glass was frozen halfway to her lips, her face suddenly pale beneath her expensive makeup. 2 minutes ago, she'd been holding court about how she and her late husband had built everything from scratch, unlike some people who just coasted through life. She'd looked directly at me when she said it. My son-in-law Bryce had gone white. Really white. He was a real estate developer, or that's what everyone called him. What they didn't know was who'd provided the seed money for his first 3 properties. What they didn't know was sitting right there in my folder. "Mom, seriously, what is this?" Emily reached for the folder, but I pulled it back. My daughter, my only child, the baby I'd carried, raised, sacrificed everything for, and she didn't even know. "This," I said quietly, my voice steady as steel, "is 15 years of bank statements, transfers, loan documents, canceled checks." I opened the folder and pulled out the first page, placing it carefully in the center of the table. This one is from 2010. A $75,000 wire transfer to Bryce Morrison for the down payment on his first rental property, the one that supposedly started his real estate empire. Patricia's wine glass hit the table with a sharp clink. "And this one," I continued, pulling out another document, sliding it toward Patricia like a card dealer in Vegas, "is from 2012. $50,000 made out to Morrison Family Trust. That's you, Patricia, to cover the renovation of your Florida condo after Frank died. The renovation you've spent the last 8 years telling everyone you paid for with your shrewd investments." "Margaret, I don't know what you think you're—" Patricia started, but her voice cracked. "Good. There's more. So much more." I placed another sheet on the table. And another. "Your daughter's wedding? The $60,000 destination venue in Costa Rica? I paid for 60% of it. The down payment on this house? $80,000 from me. Emily's student loans that mysteriously got forgiven 3 years early. I paid off every penny. $43,000. Emily's face had drained of all color. You told me Aunt Linda left me money." "Aunt Linda left you $3,000, Emily. I made up the rest because I didn't want you to feel guilty. I wanted you to feel free." I looked around the table slowly, deliberately, at these people who'd spent the evening condescending to me, to my small apartment, my modest lifestyle, my lack of ambition. But what I've realized tonight, what I've finally understood, is that my generosity didn't set you free. It made you entitled. It made you cruel. It made you forget where everything you have actually came from. Bryce cleared his throat, trying to find his voice. "Mrs. Hayes, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I said, standing up slowly, placing both hands flat on the table, "is that I ever thought this was about building a family instead of bankrolling your lifestyle." I looked each of them in the eye. "But don't worry, I'm done now, completely done. Have you ever reached a breaking point so complete that everything suddenly becomes crystal clear? That's where I was, standing in my daughter's dining room, watching the 3 of them realize that the woman they'd been pitying, dismissing, erasing, she knew everything. But let me back up and tell you how this all started, How I went from being a devoted mother and grandmother to sitting at that table with 15 years of receipts, finally ready to present the bill. My name is Margaret Eleanor Hayes. I'm 67 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I understood how the world worked. You raise your children with love and sacrifice. You teach them values. You help them build their lives. And in return, well, not in return because that's not why you do it, but naturally, inevitably, they remember. They appreciate. They honor what you've given them. I was wrong about a lot of things. 8 years ago, when my husband Daniel died suddenly at 59, I thought my life was over. We'd been married for 32 years, high school sweethearts. He was mowing the lawn on a Saturday afternoon when the heart attack hit. Our neighbor found him collapsed by the hedge trimmer. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. The funeral was the hardest thing I'd ever lived through. Emily flew home from Chicago immediately. She was 30 at the time, working as a marketing coordinator, and she held my hand through everything. She helped me sort through Daniel's clothes, his tools in the garage, the lifetime of memories packed into our small house. She stayed with me for 3 weeks, and during that time, I felt like I had my little girl back. The Emily who used to crawl into my lap. The Emily who trusted me. What Emily didn't know, what I never told her, was that Daniel and I had been very, very careful with money. I'd been a high school principal for 40 years. Daniel was an electrical engineer. We lived modestly, saved aggressively, invested wisely. By the time he died, we had over $900,000 in retirement accounts and investments. The house was paid off and worth another $380,000. I didn't tell Emily the full amount because I wanted her to build her own life, make her own way. But I also wanted to help her, the way any mother would. So when she called me 6 months after the funeral, crying because she'd met someone named Bryce and fallen completely in love, but he was struggling to get his real estate business started, and they were talking about marriage, but didn't know how they'd manage financially, I helped. I wired Bryce $75,000 for his first investment property. I told Emily it came from a separate business account of Daniel's. A small lie, a generous lie. I thought I was investing in my daughter's future, in her happiness. The property did well. Bryce flipped it 9 months later for a good profit. Suddenly, he was calling himself a real estate investor. He proposed to Emily 2 months after that, and I was thrilled. I thought I was watching my daughter's dreams come true. The wedding came next. Emily had always dreamed of a destination wedding, something special by the ocean. The budget spiraled from $40,000 to nearly $100,000. Bryce's parents, Patricia and Frank Morrison, offered to split the cost with me. But when it came time to actually write the checks, Patricia quietly mentioned to Emily that they could only contribute $20,000 because Frank had unexpected medical expenses. I ended up covering $60,000 of that wedding. I told Emily that her Aunt Linda, Daniel's sister who'd passed away, had left her money specifically for this purpose. Another lie. Another gift wrapped in deception because I wanted Emily to feel free, not obligated. The wedding in Costa Rica was beautiful. I cried watching Emily walk down the beach in her white dress. I thought I was watching the start of her happily ever after. That was 6 years ago. Over the years that followed, there were more requests. Not demands exactly, just opportunities where I could help, and I did. A down payment on their house in the suburbs, student loan payoff when Emily complained about the monthly payments, a new car when hers died, investment opportunities that Bryce needed capital for. Every time I sent the money. Every time I wrapped it in some story, a bonus I'd received, money from an old account, an unexpected tax refund. And then there was Patricia. 2 years after the wedding, Frank died of cancer. Patricia was devastated and suddenly worried about money. She mentioned to Emily that she might have to sell her Florida condo. Emily called me crying, asking if there was any way we could help Patricia, who'd been so good to us. I sent Patricia $50,000 for the condo renovation. I told Emily it was from a retirement bonus. Patricia took the money, renovated the condo beautifully, and sent me a thank you card that said, "Your generosity is appreciated," in handwriting that felt more cold than grateful. I should have noticed then, but I didn't. I wanted to be the generous mother, the helpful mother-in-law, the quiet supporter who made everyone's life easier. The shift started about 3 years ago. Emily's visits became less frequent. She was so busy with the house, and Patricia's been helping us with everything, and you should see what amazing furniture Patricia found. Patricia's name came up constantly. Patricia's advice, Patricia's taste, Patricia's connections. When I visited their house, Patricia was often there. She'd talk about her investments, her financial wisdom, how she'd always been smart with money. She'd give me sympathetic looks when I mentioned my apartment, the modest 2-bedroom I'd moved into after selling the house because I didn't need all that space. "It must be difficult," she'd say, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Living on a teacher's pension. Public sector jobs are so limiting." I'd smile and nod, biting my tongue. I could have told her my pension was $68,000 a year. I could have told her my investment income was another $45,000. I could have told her I'd paid cash for my apartment and had 0 debt. I could have told her about the $50,000 I'd given her, but I stayed quiet. Because I thought that's what good people did. The real turning point came 2 months ago at Emily's 38th birthday dinner. Patricia stood up with her wine glass to make a toast. "To Emily," she said, beaming like a spotlight, "we're so proud of everything you and Bryce have built. And we're especially grateful to be surrounded by successful, self-made people in this family." Self-made. She said self-made while standing in a house I'd helped buy, wearing jewelry I'd indirectly paid for, having renovated a condo with my money. She looked at Bryce. She looked at Emily. She looked at her own reflection in the window. She never looked at me. Emily clinked her glass against Patricia's. Bryce grinned. Nobody said, "What about Margaret?" Nobody said, "Mom helped us too." Nobody acknowledged that I existed in the story of their success. I sat there with my wine glass, smiling on the outside, dying on the inside. That night, I drove home to my small apartment and couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table and started making a list. Not in my head, I actually pulled out a notebook and started writing down every dollar I'd given to Emily, to Bryce, to Patricia over the years. By 3 a.m, I had a number: $486,000. Nearly $500,000 of my life savings. Gone. Given freely, lovingly, secretly. And in return, I got pitying looks and erasure from my own daughter's life story. I realized something that night, something that made my chest tight and my hands shake. I hadn't been building a family. I'd been funding a fantasy where they were successful and self-made, and I was just the struggling retiree in the background who didn't understand their world. I decided right then, sitting at my kitchen table at 3 a.m. with my notebook full of numbers, that I was going to find out exactly what they thought of me. And then I was going to make absolutely sure they understood exactly what they'd lost. The Monday after Emily's birthday dinner, I called my financial advisor. Robert Chen had been handling Daniel's and my investments for 20 years. He knew every dollar we'd ever saved, every account we'd ever opened. "Robert," I said when he answered, "I need your help with something. I need documentation of every transfer, check, or payment I've made to anyone in my family for the past 15 years. There was a long pause on the other end. "Margaret, is everything okay?" "I'm not sure," I said honestly. "But I need to see the full picture. Everything. Dates, amounts, purposes. Can you pull that together?" "Of course. Give me a few days." Those few days felt like weeks. I couldn't stop thinking about Patricia's toast, about Emily's silence, about the way they'd all looked right through me like I was invisible. I started paying attention to things I'd been ignoring. Small things. Strange things. Like how Emily always seemed busy when I called, but her social media showed her having long lunches with Patricia. or how Bryce had stopped including me in conversations about his business, even though I'd asked interested questions for years, or how Patricia had started giving me brochures, senior living facilities, retirement communities, assisted living options. "Just thought you might want to start thinking ahead," she'd said with that smile that didn't reach her eyes. I was 67, not 90. I was sharp, healthy, independent. Why was she pushing this? Thursday afternoon, I went to Robert's office. He had a folder waiting for me, thick, organized with colored tabs and highlighted sections. "Margaret," he said, sliding it across his desk. "I have to tell you, when I compiled all this, I was surprised. I knew you were generous with Emily, but I didn't realize the full extent." I opened the folder. The first page was a summary sheet. Total gifts, transfers, loans to family members, 2010-2025, $486,300. The number hit me like a physical blow. $486,300, nearly $500,000. Breakdown: Bryce Morrison, business investments, $145,000. Emily Hayes Morrison, student loans, car, personal. $103,000 joint gifts, house down payment, wedding. $140,000 Patricia Morrison, condo renovation, personal loans, $98,300. My hands started shaking. Seeing it laid out like this, categorized, dated, itemized, made it impossible to minimize, impossible to rationalize as just helping family. "Margaret," Robert said gently, "I need to point something out. None of these were formally reported as gifts on your tax returns, which means legally, these could be classified as loans. Without gift tax filing or signed loan agreements, the classification is ambiguous." I looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means that technically, if you wanted to, you could request repayment, or at minimum, you have documentation that these weren't gifts freely given without expectation." Something shifted in my chest. Not quite hope, not quite anger. Power, maybe. "Robert, I want you to prepare an official document, itemized statement of every transfer with dates, amounts, and stated purposes. Make it look formal. Legal." He studied my face. "Are you planning to ask for this money back?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm planning to make sure everyone knows exactly where their self-made success actually came from." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I started showing up to family gatherings not as the helpful mother in the background, but as an observer. I listened more than I spoke. I watched who took credit for what. I paid attention to the stories being told. At a Sunday brunch at Emily's house, I heard Bryce talking to a colleague who'd stopped by. "Yeah, my first investment property back in 2010, Bryce said, leaning back in his chair like a man telling a war story. "I saved for years, lived like a broke college student, drove a car that barely ran, ate ramen for dinner, but I finally scraped together enough for that down payment, and man, it changed everything. Flipped it 9 months later for 30 grand profit." I was standing 10 feet away, refilling my coffee. He saw me. He knew I could hear him. He looked directly at me and smiled as he said it. The down payment I had wired him, $75,000. And he was telling people he'd scraped it together eating ramen. I smiled back, said nothing, but inside, something was hardening into steel. A week later, I was having coffee with Emily at her house, just the two of us, which was rare now. She was scrolling through her phone, half listening as I talked about a book I'd read. "That's nice, Mom," she said absently. Then she looked up. "Oh, I meant to tell you. Patricia is such an inspiration." "Oh, why's that?" "Well, you know, after Frank died, she could have fallen apart. But instead, she took control of her finances, did that whole condo renovation by herself, picked up freelance consulting work to pay for it, managed everything. She's just so capable, so independent." Independent. The word hung in the air between us. "She paid for the renovation herself?" I asked carefully. "Yeah, well, she had some savings, but mostly she worked for it." didn't want to be a burden on anyone, you know? She's really proud of that. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted bitter. That's wonderful, honey. Really inspiring. Emily didn't notice the edge in my voice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Not like, she started, then stopped. Not like what? Nothing, Mom. Just, I think it's admirable when women our age, her age, are self-sufficient, independent, that's all. Our age, her age, not my age. I was something else, something lesser, something pitiful. I went home that afternoon and pulled out a notebook. I started documenting everything. Every comment, every slight, every moment where my contributions were erased or rewritten. March 15th. Patricia tells dinner guests about investing wisely after Frank died. No mention of my $50,000. March 22nd. Emily describes Bryce's business as built from scratch. I am sitting right there. March 30th. Bryce makes condescending joke about people who don't understand entrepreneurship while discussing my teaching career. April 5th. Patricia gives me brochure for senior living facility, suggests I might want to downsize before memory issues start. The notebook filled quickly, page after page of erasure, dismissal, condescension. Then came the Facebook post that changed everything. It was late April. I was scrolling through social media when I saw it, posted by Patricia, shared by Emily. The photo showed Patricia, Emily, and Bryce standing in front of Bryce's office building, all smiling like they'd won the lottery. The caption made my blood run cold. So proud of this self-made man. When my son Bryce started his real estate business 13 years ago, he had nothing but ambition and work ethic. Through determination and smart choices, he built a thriving portfolio from the ground up. This is what happens when you refuse to take shortcuts and do the hard work. Frank would be so proud. Self-made, Schopter, real estate, Schachticher, hard work. Proud mom, self-made, nothing but ambition, built from the ground up, no shortcuts. My $75,000 was apparently a shortcut that didn't count, or more accurately, didn't exist in their version of history. Emily had commented, "The best role models, so grateful for this family." I took a screenshot, added it to my folder. My hands were shaking with rage. That weekend, my friend Grace came over. Grace Williams had been my colleague at the high school for 35 years. She'd taught English until we both retired the same year. She knew Emily, had been at the wedding, had heard me talk about Bryce's success for years. I showed her everything. The bank statements, the notebook, the Facebook post, the whole ugly truth. Grace read through it all in silence. Her expression got darker with every page. Finally, she looked up at me. "Margaret, they're not just using you. They've erased you completely." "I know." "No, this isn't just taking advantage of your generosity. This is systematic. They've created an entire narrative where they're successful and self-made, and you're this pathetic figure who needs help. They've made you invisible in your own daughter's life." "I know," I said again, and my voice cracked. Grace reached across my kitchen table and grabbed my hand. "So what are you going to do about it?" That was the question that kept me up at night. I could confront them privately, ask Emily to acknowledge my help, ask Patricia to tell the truth, ask Bryce to give me credit. But I knew exactly how that would go. They'd gaslight me, tell me I was misremembering, being dramatic, making it about money when it was supposed to be about family. They'd say I offered the help freely, that I'd told them it was from other sources, that I'd never wanted credit before, so why now? Or they'd apologize, give me some tearful speech about being thoughtless, promise to do better. And then slowly, quietly, everything would go back to exactly the way it was. Except now I'd be the difficult mother who made everything about money. No. If I was going to do this, I needed undeniable proof. I needed witnesses. I needed to make it impossible for them to lie their way out. The breakthrough came from an unexpected conversation. My neighbor, Linda Perez, stopped me in the hallway one afternoon. Linda was about my age, a retired paralegal who'd moved into the building 2 years ago. We'd become friendly, sharing coffee sometimes, chatting about our lives. I don't know what made me tell her. Maybe I was just tired of carrying it alone. But I ended up inviting her in, showing her my folder, explaining everything. Linda listened with the focused attention of someone who'd spent 40 years dealing with legal documents and family disputes. When I finished, she asked one question. "Margaret, do you have any signed documents from them classifying these transfers as gifts?" "No, I just sent the money. Sometimes I wrote notes in the memo line, for house or for business investment, but nothing formal." Linda's eyes lit up. "So, legally, without gift tax documentation or signed acknowledgments, these could be classified as loans, especially the large amounts with specific business purposes, like Bryce's investments. But I never intended them as loans. Intention isn't always what matters in legal terms. What matters is documentation. And right now, you have documentation of transfers without documentation of gift status." She leaned forward. "Margaret, if you wanted to, you could formally request repayment. Or you could use that possibility to force an acknowledgement." I felt it again. That sense of power I'd had in Robert's office. "I don't want their money back," I said slowly. "I want them to tell the truth. I want Emily to know what I've sacrificed. I want Patricia to stop taking credit. I want Bryce to stop calling himself self-made while standing on my investment. Then," Linda said, "you need to present them with facts they can't dispute, in a setting where they can't gaslight you. You need witnesses, you need documentation, and you need to be prepared for them to be angry because people hate being exposed." That night, I made my decision. I would wait for the right moment, a family gathering where Patricia would be center stage with her false narrative. I would bring my documentation. I would present the facts calmly, clearly, with witnesses present. And I would give them a choice: acknowledge the truth publicly, or I would formally reclassify every transfer as a loan and pursue legal repayment. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was trying to make them see me, really see me, see what I'd given, see what they'd taken. But if they still couldn't see me, if even confronted with proof, they chose their fantasy over the truth, then I would make absolutely certain they felt the loss of me. Every single dollar of it. I pulled out my calendar. Mother's Day was coming up in 3 weeks. Emily was hosting dinner. Patricia would be there, of course. Probably half a dozen other family members. Perfect. I started preparing my evidence folder. Every bank statement, every transfer receipt, every screenshot, every note in my documentation notebook. I organized it chronologically, color-coded, indexed. I made it look official, undeniable, devastating. And I waited. 3 weeks until Mother's Day. 3 weeks until I stopped being invisible. 3 weeks until they learned that the quiet, generous, erasable Margaret Hayes was done being erased. The 3 weeks before Mother's Day felt like living in 2 different realities. In one reality, I was still the quiet, accommodating Margaret, showing up to family events, smiling politely, playing my role. In the other reality, I was building a case against my own daughter, like a prosecutor preparing for trial. I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Brennan, a former police detective who now ran a small firm specializing in financial fraud and elder abuse cases. Linda had recommended him. "Mrs. Hayes," he said during our first meeting, looking over my folder, "I've seen cases like this more times than I can count. Adult children who view their aging parents as ATM machines. But I have to ask, are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you open this door, there's no closing it." "I'm sure," I said. My voice didn't shake. What Tom found over the next 2 weeks made my carefully documented folder look like the tip of an iceberg. Bryce's thriving real estate business was deeply in debt. He owed over $200,000 to various creditors, had 3 properties in pre-foreclosure, and was being sued by 2 former business partners for fraud. The successful image he projected on social media, the expensive suits, the office building, it was all smoke and mirrors. He was drowning, and he'd been planning to use me as his life raft. Tom showed me emails he'd obtained through legal channels, emails between Bryce and Emily discussing Mom's assets, emails about how much my apartment was worth, what my retirement accounts might contain, whether I had life insurance policies. One email from Bryce to Emily, dated 3 months ago, made me physically sick. "We need to move faster on this. My creditors are circling. If we can get your mom to sign over power of attorney, we can access her accounts before she realizes what's happening. She trusts you completely. Use that." Emily's response: "I feel weird about this. She's still sharp, Bryce. What if she says no?" Bryce's reply: "Then we plant seeds. Talk about her forgetting things. Get Patricia to back us up. My mom's great at that concerned family member act. A few months of that, and even your mom will start doubting herself. Plus, we have that connection at Shady Oaks Senior Facility. They owe me a favor. We can get her evaluated, get documentation that she's declining." I read that email 3 times. Then I walked to my bathroom and threw up. My son-in-law wasn't just using my money. He was planning to have me declared incompetent so he could steal everything I had left. And my daughter, my Emily, was going along with it. "There's more," Tom said quietly when I came back. He showed me records of Patricia's finances, too. Turned out her successful investments were as fake as Bryce's business empire. She was living on Social Security and the money I'd given her. The condo I'd helped renovate? She'd taken out a second mortgage on it last year. She was 62 years old and nearly broke. "So she needs Emily and Bryce to take care of her," I said slowly, understanding clicking into place. "Which means she needs them to get my money." "Exactly. She's been actively helping them build a case that you're declining. I found records of calls she made to your apartment building manager, asking if you'd seemed confused lately. Calls to your doctor's office claiming to be worried about your memory issues. My doctor, Dr. Reeves, who I'd been seeing for 20 years, who knew I was perfectly healthy." "What did Dr. Reeves say?" "According to the office notes, she told Patricia that you were in excellent health, cognitively sharp, and there were no concerns whatsoever. Patricia wasn't happy about that." I sat back in my chair, trying to process it all. This wasn't just about ungratefulness or taking me for granted. This was conspiracy. This was elder financial abuse. This was my own family actively planning to destroy my independence, my autonomy, my entire life, for money. "Mrs. Hayes," Tom said, "you need to protect yourself legally, today, right now, before they make their next move." That afternoon, I met with an attorney. Her name was Jennifer Walsh, a specialist in elder law and estate planning. I brought Tom's report, Robert's financial documentation, and my own evidence folder. Jennifer read through everything with the focused intensity of a surgeon examining an X-ray. When she finally looked up, her expression was grim. "Margaret, this is textbook financial exploitation. What your family is planning, and make no mistake, they are actively planning this, is illegal. It's elder abuse, and in this state, it's a felony." "I don't want them arrested," I said quickly. "I just want them to stop. I want them to acknowledge what they've done." "I understand. But you need to protect yourself first. Here's what we're going to do." She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "First, we're filing a statement with the county recorder's office establishing your mental competency. We'll have you evaluated by an independent neuropsychologist who will document that you are of sound mind. This prevents them from successfully claiming otherwise." "Okay." "Second, we're changing your will and all beneficiary designations immediately. Everything currently going to Emily will be redirected to a trust that she cannot access or contest." My heart clenched. That seems so final. "It's protective. You can always change it back if circumstances change, but right now they're planning to rob you. We need to move your assets out of their reach. What else? Third, we're going to reclassify those financial transfers as loans, all of them. We'll draft formal loan documents backdated to the original transfer dates with interest accrued. It's legal because you never formally gifted the money. You simply transferred it without documentation. How much would they owe me? Jennifer did some quick calculations. With standard interest rates, approximately $640,000. The number hung in the air between us. $640,000. More than I'd given because of accumulated interest over 15 years. They can't pay that, I said. No, they can't, which gives you leverage. You can offer to forgive the debt in exchange for specific conditions, like public acknowledgement, formal apology, and agreement to cease all contact and manipulation. Or you pursue legal collection, which would likely force them into bankruptcy, seizure of assets, and possible criminal charges for the fraud and elder abuse components. I sat with that for a long moment. The power to destroy them financially. The power to send my own daughter into bankruptcy. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, it felt like ashes in my mouth. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I want the truth. I want them to stop pretending they built their lives alone. I want Emily to understand what she's done, what she's planning to do. Then we prepare for both scenarios. We document everything legally, file the protections, reclassify the loans, and you confront them with the evidence and the choice. Truth and acknowledgement, or legal consequences. There's a Mother's Day dinner, I said. Sunday, at Emily's house. Patricia will be there. Probably some extended family. That's when I want to do it. Jennifer nodded slowly. In front of witnesses. Smart. They can't gaslight you if other people hear the truth. But Margaret, you need to be prepared for them to react badly. Anger, denial, possible aggression. I know. I'd recommend having someone there with you. Your friend Grace, perhaps? And Tom can be nearby if things escalate. I thought about it. Grace would support me. Tom would keep me safe. And the other family members, Emily's Aunt Susan, Bryce's brother David, maybe a few cousins, they would hear the truth. They would be witnesses to whatever happened next. Okay, I said. Let's do it. All of it. The next week was a blur of legal appointments and preparations. I met with the neuropsychologist, Dr. Martinez, who put me through 4 hours of cognitive testing. Memory, reasoning, problem-solving, judgment. At the end, she smiled. Mrs. Hayes, I don't know who told you that you needed this evaluation, but your cognitive function is excellent. You tested in the 95th percentile for your age group. There is absolutely no evidence of decline, confusion, or impairment. Whoever suggested otherwise is either mistaken or lying. Can you document that officially? Already done. I'll file the report with your attorney today. If anyone tries to claim you're incompetent, this report will shut that down immediately. One piece of armor in place. Jennifer filed all the legal documents. My new will, removing Emily as beneficiary. The trust that would protect my assets. The formal loan documents, itemized and notarized. The statement of competency registered with the county. A protective order ready to file if needed. You're legally bulletproof now, Jennifer said. They can't touch your assets. They can't have you declared incompetent. They can't manipulate your estate. And if they try, they'll face criminal charges. Robert moved my liquid assets into accounts Emily didn't know existed. Changed all my passwords. Set up alerts for any attempts to access my information. Tom briefed me on what to expect during the confrontation. They'll try to flip it on you, make you the bad guy. How could you do this to family? Money isn't important. You're being cruel. Don't engage with the emotional manipulation. Stick to facts. State the evidence. Give them the choice. Then leave. What if Emily breaks down? What if she cries? Tom's expression softened. Then you remember that those tears are about getting caught, not about hurting you. If she cared about hurting you, she wouldn't have planned to rob you in the first place. 3 days before Mother's Day, things escalated in a way I didn't expect. Emily called me, her voice sugary sweet. "Mom, hi. I was thinking, would you want to come over this weekend? Before the big Mother's Day dinner? Maybe Saturday? Just you and me?" Every alarm bell in my head went off. Emily never invited me for one-on-one time anymore. "That sounds nice, honey. What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just feel like we haven't had quality time together, and I wanted to talk to you about something." "What about?" "Oh, just planning stuff. Future stuff. It can wait until Saturday." Planning stuff. Future stuff. Power of attorney stuff, more likely. "Sure, honey. What time?" "How about 2 o'clock? Bryce will be at a work thing, so it'll just be us." Just us. No witnesses, no interference. Perfect conditions for manipulation. Sounds perfect. See you then. I hung up and immediately called Jennifer. "They're making their move," I said. "Emily wants me to come over Saturday, alone, to talk about planning stuff." "Don't go. I have to. If I refuse, she'll know I suspect something. I need to play along for 2 more days." "Then wear a wire." "What?" "Wear a recording device. Anything she says about power of attorney, about your competency, about her plans. We want it documented. Tom can set you up with something subtle." An hour later, I was in Tom's office, learning how to use a tiny recording device that clipped inside my bra. It would capture everything within 15 feet, upload to a secure cloud server in real time. "If she pulls out legal documents, take pictures with your phone," Tom said. "Pretend you're checking a text. The camera is silent if you switch it to that mode." I felt like a spy. A 67-year-old spy in sensible shoes, preparing to record her own daughter's attempt to steal her life. Saturday came. I drove to Emily's house at exactly 2 o'clock, wearing the wire, my phone fully charged in my purse. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. My mind was clear. Whatever happened in the next hour would either confirm everything I feared or prove me wrong. Part of me desperately hoped to be wrong. I wasn't. Emily answered the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mom, come in. I made coffee." We sat at her kitchen table, the table I'd helped her buy, and made small talk for 10 minutes. She asked about my week. I asked about hers, both of us dancing around the real conversation. Finally, Emily took a deep breath. "Mom, there's something I need to talk to you about, and I need you to really listen, okay? Don't get defensive." My heart was pounding, but I kept my face neutral. "Okay, honey. Bryce and I have been worried about you. You're getting older, and we've noticed some changes." "What kind of changes?" "You seem forgetful sometimes, confused. Last month you called me twice to ask the same question. And your neighbor Mrs. Chen mentioned you seemed disoriented in the hallway. I'd never spoken to Mrs. Chen beyond polite hellos. This was a lie." "I don't remember calling you twice, honey." "See? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Memory issues." Her voice dripped with fake concern. "And we love you, Mom. We want to make sure you're taken care of. So Bryce and I were thinking, maybe it's time to make some arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" She pulled out a folder. My stomach dropped. "Well, we found this really nice assisted living facility, just for planning purposes. And we thought maybe it would be smart to set up a power of attorney. You know, so if anything happens, I can handle your finances and medical decisions. Emily, I'm 67. I'm healthy. Why would I need assisted living or power of attorney?" "Mom, don't be stubborn. This is just being smart. Everyone your age should have these things in place." She slid papers across the table. Official-looking documents. Power of attorney forms, pre-filled with her name. "Have you read these?" I asked. "Bryce's lawyer prepared them. They're standard. You just need to sign here and here and here." She pointed to signature lines. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. When had she become this stranger? This person who could sit across from me and smile while trying to steal my independence? Emily, these forms give you complete control over all my assets, my bank accounts, my apartment, my medical care, everything. Right. So I can help you, Mom, so you don't have to worry about complicated stuff. What if I don't want to sign them? Her smile faltered. Mom, don't make this difficult. We're trying to help you. I don't need help, Emily. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life. That's what people with dementia always say. There it was, the accusation, the gaslighting, the word that would justify everything they planned to do. I stood up. I'm not signing anything today, Emily. I need to think about it. Mom, please, just sign the papers. It's for your own good. No. Her expression changed. The fake sweetness dropped away, replaced by something harder, angrier. You're being selfish. Do you know how much stress you're putting on us? Always worrying about you, wondering if you're okay? This would make everything easier. Easier for whom? For all of us. God, Mom, why do you have to be so difficult? I picked up my purse. I'm going home now. We can talk about this later. If you don't sign these papers, Emily said, her voice cold, Bryce and I will have to take other steps, legal steps, for your own protection. I looked at her, my baby girl, the child I'd carried, raised, sacrificed everything for, the daughter who was threatening me in her own kitchen. Do what you have to do, Emily, I said quietly. So will I. I walked out, got in my car, and drove home. My hands didn't start shaking until I was safely in my apartment with the door locked. I pulled out my phone and texted Tom. Got everything. It's worse than we thought. His response came immediately. Good. Now we nail them. 2 more days until Mother's Day dinner. 2 more days until I presented the bill for 15 years of generosity, sacrifice, and betrayal. They thought they were protecting themselves from a confused old woman. They had no idea they'd just handed me the final piece of evidence I needed. The recording of Emily threatening legal action if I didn't surrender my independence? That was Elder Abuse 101. Jennifer could use it to destroy them legally if needed, but I didn't want legal destruction. Not yet. Not if there was any chance that confronting them with the truth might break through. One last chance for honesty. One last opportunity for my daughter to choose me over money. And if she didn't, then I would rain down consequences like they'd never imagined. Mother's Day. The day meant to honor mothers. Instead, it would be the day I taught my daughter exactly what she was losing. Mother's Day morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. Not because I was anxious. I'd moved past anxiety into something colder, clearer, certainty. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my evidence folder one last time. Everything was there. Bank statements showing $480,300 in transfers. Tom's investigator report documenting their debts and schemes. The recording of Emily threatening me if I didn't sign over power of attorney. Dr. Martinez's cognitive evaluation proving I was perfectly sound. Jennifer's loan reclassification documents showing they now legally owed me $640,000 with interest. 15 years of my life, distilled into 60 pages of undeniable proof. Grace arrived at 9 o'clock to help me get ready. She'd insisted on coming with me, and I was grateful. I needed a witness. I needed someone who loved me in that room. How are you feeling? She asked, watching me button my blue cardigan, the one Emily had given me 3 Christmases ago, back when gifts still meant something. Like I'm about to blow up my entire family, I said. No, they blew it up when they decided to rob you. You're just making sure everyone sees the damage. We arrived at Emily's house at noon. The dinner wasn't until 1 o'clock, but Emily had asked me to come early to help set up. More likely to try one more time to get me to sign those papers, now that her Saturday attempt had failed. Emily answered the door with a tight smile. Mom, Grace, I didn't know you were bringing someone. Grace is family to me, I said simply, walking past her into the house. The dining room was already set. Beautiful table, fresh flowers, expensive wine glasses, all the trappings of a perfect Mother's Day celebration. I wondered how much of it was funded by credit cards they couldn't pay, by loans they'd never intended to repay. "Patricia will be here soon," Emily said, fidgeting with the napkins. "And Aunt Susan and Bryce's brother David should be a nice group." Perfect. Exactly the witnesses I needed. "Emily," I said, "before everyone gets here, I need to tell you something." Her eyes lit up. She thought I was about to cave, about to sign the papers like a good compliant mother. "Of course, Mom. Let's go to the kitchen." "No, here is fine. Grace can stay." Emily's smile faltered. "Mom, this is family business. Grace is my family. She stays." We stood in the dining room, the three of us, tension crackling in the air like static electricity. "I'm not signing your power of attorney papers," I said clearly. "Not today, not ever, and I need you to stop asking." Emily's face flushed. "Mom, we've been through this. You need help. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Emily. Clearer than I have in years, actually. That's not what we've been seeing. The forgetfulness, the confusion." "I'm not confused. I'm not forgetful. I had a full cognitive evaluation done by Dr. Martinez last week. I scored in the 95th percentile for my age group. There's nothing wrong with my mind." Emily blinked. "You... what? Why would you do that?" "Because I knew what you were planning. I knew you were trying to build a case that I'm incompetent. The phone calls to my doctor, to my building manager, asking if I seemed confused. I know about all of it." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. I have recordings, Emily. From our conversation on Saturday, you threatening legal action if I didn't surrender control of my life. That's called elder abuse, by the way. It's a felony." "Mom, you're twisting everything." The doorbell rang. Patricia's voice rang out from the front hallway. "Hello? Anyone home?" "We're not done with this conversation," I said quietly to Emily, "but we'll finish it when everyone's here." Emily looked panicked. Good. Over the next 30 minutes, the rest of the guests arrived. Patricia, perfectly coiffed and wearing pearls. Aunt Susan, Daniel's younger sister, who I'd always been close with. David, Bryce's brother, who seemed like a decent man trapped in a family of sharks. Bryce himself, arriving late, smelling like expensive cologne and desperation. We gathered around the table. Emily had made a beautiful spread. Honey-glazed ham, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. Probably all charged to credit cards that were maxed out. I forced myself to take small bites, to smile, to play the role one last time. Patricia dominated the conversation, as always. Stories about her volunteer work, her bridge club, her successful financial management of her retirement. Every word was a knife, knowing what I knew now, knowing she was broke, knowing she was pushing Emily to rob me so Emily could support her. Finally, after the main course was cleared and before dessert was served, Patricia stood with her wine glass. Oh God, another toast, another speech about self-made success. "I'd like to say a few words," Patricia began, smiling around the table. "Mother's Day is special, and I'm grateful to be surrounded by such a wonderful family. Emily and Bryce have built such a beautiful life." "Actually, Patricia," I said, my voice cutting through her speech like a blade, "before you continue, there's something I need to share with everyone." The table went silent. Patricia's smile froze. I pulled the manila folder from my bag and placed it on the table. The same folder from my opening scene, the moment I'd been building toward for weeks. "What's that, Mom?" Emily asked, her voice thin. "This is the truth," I said, "and I think it's time everyone heard it." Bryce's face had gone pale. Emily looked like she might be sick. Patricia slowly sat back down, her toast forgotten. I opened the folder. "For the past 15 years, I've been supporting this family financially. Not just Emily, all of you. And I did it quietly, secretly, because I thought that's what good mothers did. But what I've realized is that my silence allowed all of you to rewrite history, to pretend you built your lives alone, to treat me like I was invisible. Margaret, this isn't the time, Patricia started. This is exactly the time, I said firmly. Aunt Susan, David, I want you to hear this too, because you've been hearing stories about Bryce's self-made success and Patricia's financial wisdom and Emily's good fortune, and none of it is true. I pulled out the first bank statement. In 2010, I wired Bryce $75,000 for his first investment property, the one he claims he saved for by eating ramen and living like a broke college student. That's a lie. I placed the statement in the center of the table. In 2012, I gave Patricia $50,000 to renovate her condo after Frank died. The renovation she spent years claiming she paid for with her own shrewd investments and freelance work. That's also a lie. Another document on the table. I paid for 60% of Emily's wedding, $43,000 of her student loans, $80,000 toward the down payment on this house, $18,000 for her car, multiple business investments for Bryce totaling another $70,000. All told, I've given this family $486,300 over 15 years. The table was completely silent. Aunt Susan's mouth was hanging open. David was staring at Bryce with an expression I couldn't read. And in return, I continued, my voice steady, I got erased, written out of the story. Treated like a pathetic, confused old woman who needed managing. Patricia gave me brochures for nursing homes. Bryce made jokes about me not understanding business. Emily avoided my calls and spent all her time with Patricia instead. Mom, you're making this sound, Emily tried. I'm not finished. I pulled out more documents. Last week, Emily asked me to sign power of attorney papers that would give her complete control over my assets, my medical care, my entire life. And when I refused, she threatened me, told me they'd take legal steps to force me. I have that conversation recorded, by the way. Emily looked like she'd been slapped. Now, I'm going to give all of you a choice, I said, looking at each of them. My attorney has reclassified every dollar I gave you as loans. Loans that you never repaid. With 15 years of accumulated interest, you now legally owe me $640,000. Bryce made a choking sound. You can't afford to pay that. I know that. So here's your choice. You can publicly acknowledge the truth. All of it. Post corrections to your social media lies. Admit to everyone here and now that you built your lives on my money, not your own hard work. Apologize sincerely, and agree to cease all contact with me unless I initiate it. I paused, letting that sink in. Or I pursue full legal collection, which will force you into bankruptcy, seizure of assets, and I will press criminal charges for elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, and conspiracy. Those are felonies. Prison time. The silence was deafening. Patricia found her voice first. You wouldn't dare. I looked at her. This woman who'd taken my money and used it to humiliate me. Try me. Mom, please, Emily whispered. You're ruining everything. No, Emily. You ruined everything when you decided to rob me instead of love me. I stood up, closing my folder. You have until midnight tonight to decide. Call my attorney with your answer. I placed Jennifer's business card on the table. Choose wisely. Grace stood with me. We walked toward the door together. Behind us, chaos erupted. Voices overlapping. Bryce shouting, Patricia crying, Emily calling after me. I didn't look back. We walked out of that house, out of that performance, out of that lie of a family. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt free. Grace drove me home. Neither of us spoke during the 15-minute drive. What was there to say? I'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of my family. There was no going back now. When we pulled into my apartment building's parking lot, My phone started ringing. Emily. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Declined. Then text messages started flooding in. Mom, please, come back. We can talk about this. You're being ridiculous. How could you embarrass us like that? You're going to regret this. The messages kept coming, shifting from pleading to angry to threatening within minutes. I turned my phone to silent and placed it face down on my kitchen counter. Do you want me to stay? Grace asked. No, I'm okay. I just need to be alone for a while. She hugged me tightly before leaving. You did the right thing, Margaret. Don't let them make you doubt that. After she left, I sat in my living room and waited. I knew they'd come. People like Patricia and Bryce don't take public humiliation quietly. They'd show up, try to intimidate me, try to manipulate me back into silence. I was right. 2 hours later, someone was pounding on my door. Aggressive, angry pounding. Mom, open this door. We need to talk. Emily's voice, shrill and desperate. I looked through the peephole. Emily, Bryce, and Patricia, all standing in my hallway. Bryce's face was red with rage. Patricia looked like she'd been crying, though I suspected those were performative tears. I opened the door, but kept the chain lock engaged. What do you want? What do I want? Emily's voice cracked. You just humiliated us in front of our entire family. You accused us of I don't even know what. You need to fix this. Fix what exactly? Fix the truth? You made it sound like we stole from you, Bryce shouted from behind Emily. You gave us that money freely. You never said it was a loan. You're right. I gave it freely, out of love, and you took it and pretended it never happened. You erased me from my own daughter's life while building your empire on my money. Patricia pushed forward. Margaret, you're being vindictive and cruel. Families help each other. That's what you do. You don't keep score like some kind of accountant. I wouldn't have kept score if you hadn't lied about it. If you hadn't taken credit for my generosity. If you hadn't tried to have me declared incompetent so you could steal what's left. No one was trying to steal anything, Emily protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I closed the door, unlocked the chain, and opened it fully. Come in. Let's finish this conversation properly. They filed into my small living room, looking around like they'd never seen it before. Maybe they hadn't really looked. Maybe to them, it was just the sad little apartment where the pathetic mother lived. I sat in my armchair. They remained standing, a unified front against me. Let me show you something, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the recording app and hit play. Emily's voice filled the room. If you don't sign these papers, Bryce and I will have to take other steps, legal steps, for your own protection. Emily's face went white. You recorded me? I recorded you attempting to coerce me into signing over power of attorney by threatening legal action if I refused. That's textbook elder abuse, Emily. My attorney has already filed a report with Adult Protective Services. You called APS on us? Bryce exploded. Are you insane? No, I'm protecting myself from people who are actively trying to rob me. Rob you? Patricia's voice dripped with indignation. Is that what you think? That we're criminals? We're your family, Margaret. Families don't steal from each other. Families don't gaslight each other. Families don't plot to have each other declared incompetent for financial gain. I pulled out Tom's investigator report. I hired a private investigator. Would you like to know what he found? Bryce's expression shifted from angry to panicked. You had no right? I had every right to protect my assets from fraud. He found emails, Bryce. Emails between you and Emily discussing Mom's assets and how to access her accounts before she realizes what's happening. Your words, not mine. Emily sank onto my couch. Oh, God. He also found that your business isn't thriving. It's drowning in over $200,000 of debt, 3 properties in foreclosure, 2 lawsuits for fraud. You're not successful, Bryce. You're desperate, and you saw me as your way out. Bryce's jaw clenched. Those emails were taken out of context. What context makes get her to sign over power of attorney so we can access her accounts acceptable? Silence. I turned to Patricia. And you, the self-made widow who managed her investments so wisely. Except you're not self-made. You're broke. You took a second mortgage on the condo I helped you renovate. You're living on Social Security and whatever you can extract from Emily and Bryce. Patricia's mask slipped. The concerned mother-in-law disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. So what? So I needed help? That's what family does. Help is asking honestly and saying thank you. What you did was take my money and pretend it was your own success, then spend years making me feel inferior for not being as capable as you. You're so sensitive. Everything is always about you. No, Patricia, I made everything about all of you. I sacrificed my financial security to help you build your lives, and you thanked me by plotting to steal what I have left. Emily finally spoke, her voice small. Mom, we weren't going to steal from you. We were just trying to help. You're getting older, and you thought I was becoming incompetent so you could control my money. But I'm not incompetent, Emily. I had a full neuropsychological evaluation. Dr. Martinez confirmed I'm cognitively sharp, no signs of decline whatsoever. Every lie you've told about my confusion, my forgetfulness, they're all documented as false. We were worried. You were greedy. The words came out harder than I intended, but they were true. You saw my assets as your inheritance, and you couldn't wait for me to die naturally. You wanted it now, so you planned to have me declared incompetent and take it. Tears were streaming down Emily's face now. Real tears, maybe. Or maybe just tears of getting caught. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. Then why did you? My voice broke. This was the question I'd been carrying for weeks. Why, Emily? I gave you everything. I loved you unconditionally. I helped you build your life. Why wasn't that enough? Why did you need to erase me? I didn't erase you. Yes, you did. You stopped calling unless you needed money. You spent all your time with Patricia instead of me. You dismissed everything I said, everything I cared about. You treated me like a burden, like a confused old woman who didn't matter. And when I didn't give you control fast enough, you decided to take it. Emily was sobbing now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry for what you did? Or sorry that you got caught? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. I stood up and walked to my desk, pulling out the legal documents Jennifer had prepared. Here's what's going to happen now. These are loan documents, officially reclassifying every dollar I gave you as loans with standard interest rates. You currently owe me $640,000. Bryce laughed bitterly. We don't have $600,000. I know. Your business is failing. Your house is mortgaged to the limit. You're drowning in debt, which means you can't pay me back. So what? You're going to bankrupt us? Destroy your own daughter? Patricia snapped. No, I'm going to give you one chance. One chance to choose honesty over consequences. I pulled out another document. This is a debt forgiveness agreement. I will forgive the entire $640,000 under the following conditions. First, you publicly acknowledge the truth. Social media posts correcting every lie about being self-made. Acknowledgement that I funded Bryce's business, Patricia's condo, Emily's wedding, this house, everything. You want us to humiliate ourselves publicly? Bryce demanded. I want you to tell the truth publicly. There's a difference. Second, you agree to cease all contact with me unless I initiate it. No calls, no visits, no messages. Third, you sign an agreement promising never to pursue power of attorney, conservatorship, or any legal control over my life or assets. You're cutting us out of your life? Emily's voice was devastated. You cut me out of yours long ago, Emily. You just kept me around as a bank account. Now I'm closing the account. What if we refuse? Patricia asked coldly. Then I pursue full legal collection, seizure of assets, forced sale of your house, Emily, bankruptcy for Bryce's business, and I press criminal charges for elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, conspiracy, and coercion. Those charges carry prison time." The room fell silent. The weight of choice hung heavy in the air. "You would really do that?" Emily whispered. "Send your own daughter to prison?" "You are really going to rob me," I said quietly. "Have me declared incompetent, lock me in a nursing home and steal everything I worked 40 years to build. Yes, Emily, if you force me to choose between my survival and yours, I choose mine." Bryce and Patricia exchanged glances. I could see them calculating, strategizing, looking for the angle that would let them win. But there was no angle. I held all the cards now. "This is extortion," Bryce said. "No, extortion would be demanding money for my silence. I'm offering debt forgiveness in exchange for honesty. That's a gift you don't deserve." "How long do we have to decide?" Patricia asked. "You have until midnight tonight. After that, the offer expires and I pursue full legal action. My attorney already has all the documents prepared." Emily stood up shakily. "Mom, please. There has to be another way. We're family." "Family doesn't do what you did to me, Emily. I loved you more than my own life. I would have given you anything you asked for honestly. But you lied. You manipulated. You plotted to destroy my independence and steal my life savings. That's not family. That's abuse." She reached for me, but I stepped back. I couldn't let her touch me. If she touched me, I might break. "I need you to leave now," I said. "You have 7 hours to decide. Choose wisely." Patricia stormed out first, fury radiating from her like heat. Bryce followed, muttering something under his breath about lawyers and countersuits that we both knew were empty threats. Emily lingered at my door. "I do love you, Mom. I know you don't believe that right now, but I do." "Love without respect isn't love, Emily. It's exploitation with affection attached. I never meant for it to go this far. Everything spiraled, and Bryce was so stressed about money, and Patricia kept saying you'd want to help, and I thought—" She stopped, realizing how hollow it all sounded. "You thought I'd never find out. You thought I'd just keep giving until there was nothing left, and then you'd put me somewhere I couldn't complain. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Only truth and change can fix this. And I'm not sure you're capable of either." She left without another word. I closed the door behind her and locked it. All the locks, the deadbolt, the chain, the security latch I'd had installed last week. I was alone in my apartment. Alone with my evidence folders, my legal documents, my recordings of my own daughter threatening me. Alone with the wreckage of 15 years of generous delusion. But I was also free. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't funding anyone's fantasy. I wasn't being erased from my own life story. I wasn't playing the role of the pathetic, confused mother who needed managing. I was Margaret Eleanor Hayes, 67 years old, cognitively sharp, financially independent, and completely done being victimized by people who claimed to love me. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Tom has agents ready to serve papers if they miss the midnight deadline. Just say the word." I looked at the clock. 5:47 p.m., 6 hours and 13 minutes until midnight. 6 hours and 13 minutes for Emily to choose between the mother who raised her and the lies she'd been living. I sat down and waited to see which version of my daughter would show up in the end. Midnight came and went. No phone call, no email, no knock at my door. At 12:01 a.m., I texted Jennifer. They missed the deadline. Her response came immediately. "Papers will be served at 9 a.m. I'm sorry, Margaret." I wasn't sorry, not anymore. Their silence was an answer. They'd chosen the lies over the truth. They'd chosen their pride over their mother. So be it. I went to bed that night and slept better than I had in months. No nightmares, no anxiety. Just the deep, dreamless sleep of someone who'd finally stopped carrying a weight that was never hers to bear. The next morning, Tom called me at 8:47 a.m. "Mrs. Hayes, my team just served the papers." Emily answered the door. She tried to refuse them, but that's not how it works. She has them now. How did she look? Honestly, destroyed. "But Margaret, that's not your burden to carry." He was right. I'd given her a choice. She'd made it. The consequences were hers to live with. Over the next 3 months, everything unfolded exactly as Jennifer had predicted. Bryce's business assets were seized to pay the debt. The house, my house, the one I'd helped them buy, went into foreclosure. Emily and Bryce were forced to move into a small rental apartment across town. Patricia lost her condo. The second mortgage, combined with the portion of debt attributed to her, meant she couldn't afford to keep it. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a senior complex, the kind she'd been recommending to me, ironically. The criminal investigation into elder financial abuse moved forward. Emily cooperated fully, providing evidence against Bryce and Patricia in exchange for immunity. She testified that Bryce had orchestrated the power of attorney scheme, that Patricia had encouraged it, and that she'd gone along out of fear and financial pressure. I believed parts of that. Emily had always been easily influenced, easily manipulated, but she was also an adult who'd made her own choices, and one of those choices was to threaten her own mother instead of protecting her. The judge was not sympathetic to Bryce. He received 18 months in federal prison for attempted elder financial exploitation and fraud. Patricia received probation and a permanent record. Emily received nothing legally, but she lost everything else. 3 months after Mother's Day, I sold my apartment and bought a small house by the coast. Nothing extravagant. 2 bedrooms, a garden, a view of the ocean from my kitchen window. I'd always wanted to live by the water. Daniel and I had talked about it for years, planned for it, saved for it. Now, finally, I was doing it. Grace visited often. We'd sit on my porch with coffee and watch the sunrise over the water. She never said, "I told you so," though she had every right to. She just held my hand and reminded me that I'd survived. I started volunteering at the local senior center, teaching a financial literacy course called Protecting Yourself, Finance and Family. I taught elderly women how to recognize financial exploitation, how to protect their assets, how to say no to adult children who saw them as ATMs instead of people. The classes filled up immediately. Every woman there had a story. A son who'd stolen from her, a daughter who'd forged her signature, grandchildren who'd emptied her accounts. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. I'd just been too ashamed to see it. One woman, 73-year-old Patricia, different Patricia, kind Patricia, told me after class one day, "You saved my life. My son was pressuring me to sell my house and move in with him. Said it was for my own good. But after your class, I hired a lawyer, found out he'd already forged documents trying to get power of attorney. You taught me I deserved better." Those words meant more to me than any apology Emily could have given. 6 months after everything exploded, Emily called. I'd unblocked her number a month earlier, not because I was ready to talk, but because I was ready to see if she'd try. "Mom." Her voice was small, broken. "I don't expect you to answer, but I need you to know. I understand now. What I did, what I almost did. I'm in therapy, real therapy, and I'm facing what I became." I didn't respond, just listened. "You gave me everything, and I repaid you with betrayal. There's no excuse for that, no explanation that makes it okay. I was greedy and cruel, and I justified it by telling myself you'd want to help. But what I wanted wasn't help. It was control, power, money I hadn't earned." Silence. Then, her voice breaking. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She hung up. I sat with that apology for a long time. Was it real? Was it manipulation? Was it therapy speak she'd learned to try to get back into my life? I didn't know. Maybe I'd never know. But what I did know was this: I didn't need her apology to heal. I was already healing. With or without Emily's acknowledgement, I was building a life that was mine, not funded by obligation, not diminished by erasure, not stolen by people who claimed to love me. I'm 68 now. A year has passed since that Mother's Day dinner that ended everything and began everything. People ask me if I regret it, blowing up my family, pursuing legal action, cutting off my only daughter. The answer is complicated. Do I regret losing Emily? Every single day. She's still my daughter. I still love her. That doesn't just stop. But do I regret protecting myself? Demanding truth? Refusing to be victimized? Never. Not once. Not even for a second. I learned something in these past months. Generosity without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. And staying silent about abuse to keep the peace isn't strength. It's surrender. I spent 15 years funding other people's dreams while erasing my own worth. I let them define me as less than because I was afraid that demanding respect would make me look selfish. But there's nothing selfish about requiring honesty. Nothing cruel about protecting yourself from people who mean you harm. If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be this: your love is valuable. Your sacrifice matters. And anyone who tells you otherwise while taking everything you offer, they don't deserve you. I have a good life now. I wake up to ocean waves. I teach women how to protect themselves. I have coffee with Grace every Wednesday. I read books without guilt. I spend my money on things that bring me joy instead of funding other people's fantasies. And you know what? I'm not lonely. I'm not bitter. I'm free. So if you're watching this and you've been betrayed by family, taken advantage of by people you love, erased from your own story while funding theirs, I want you to know something. You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're not wrong to demand better. You deserve respect. You deserve honesty. You deserve to be seen. And if the people in your life can't give you that, then maybe it's time to build a life without them. It's terrifying. It's painful. But I promise you, it's worth it. My name is Margaret Eleanor Hayes. I'm 68 years old. I survived 40 years of teaching teenagers, 8 years of widowhood, and 15 years of financial exploitation by my own family. And I'm still standing. If you've lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. And if this story helped you see something you needed to see, please like and subscribe. You never know who needs to hear that it's okay to choose yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you're stronger than you know.